Dave, he's in Vegas on the amp lines. Hello, Dave.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey.
Since you're talking about banning things to protect the kids, there was an article I believe yesterday or the day before that Eric Holder, the Attorney General, who's actually on his way out, spoke at some global conference against child sex abuse or something, and the technology that I guess Apple and a few other companies are coming out with that would, I don't know that it would actually stop the police from getting your data. That's what they're saying. But he had come out and said, well, the police need to get this data because if not, people are going to be able to exploit your kids. And, that law enforcement, needs this to protect the children.
How exactly is it that police being able to access people's cell phone information is going to stop child exploitation? I don't understand that. I mean, I don't know if you know the answer. I'm not expecting you to know. I'm sort of asking the universe.
It's not. It's to me, obviously, it's just, where they come out and they'll talk about terrorists or drug dealers they need to catch. And it's just another thing that they're using to scare people saying, oh, if you don't give us access to everything and give up your privacy, all these child molesters will be walking around. And I think it has to do with what he tried to say is, the images that people share of underage kids or something, they won't be able to access those. And it's just, the whole thing's just ridiculous. Obviously, again, it's, propaganda to try to scare people.
While we're banning things that are not child-friendly, why don't we get rid of porn, strip clubs, tobacco, alcohol, driving, everything else? Because, it's just not child-friendly, so none of us can do it.
Child exploitation is a great excuse. You got to hand it to Eric Holder in this case, because that's the best excuse.
It's the one that you can really trot out there. You can't have any privacy online, because if any privacy is allowed online, the child pornographers will use it to purvey child pornography, so we must be able to see into everything you do. That's what the argument is, and it's strong, right? Like, nobody wants to see children, victims of this kind of abuse. Nobody wants to see that.
Right. Nobody wants to take the side of the child abusers in the United States. However,
the evidence is the NSA has nothing to do with catching child abusers.
Well, and also, look, the fact is privacy is important, and if you let the camel's nose under the tent, then you are done at that point. If there's if there is no privacy, then that's a terrible destruction of our freedoms. And to allow the government to have full access to everything that you do online is a bad idea. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, I have nothing to hide, so who cares? What would you say to that?
I would say that you still have a right to your privacy and you should want it because, well, what if, it's not about having something to hide. It's about the fact that it's your business. It's like if your mother comes in and reads your journal, even if there's nothing incriminating in there, it's still like, wouldn't you feel just completely like you can't trust that woman anymore?
Also, I think that people do have things to hide. So many things are criminalized in this country, you never know what it is.
That's just it. You may not realize what you have to hide.
With the government deciding who gets health care and who doesn't and how that is distributed and that sort of thing, you're not going to necessarily want all your health information up on the internet or whatever. There's just a whole variety of reasons why you would want some privacy in your life. And
I was actually talking to a friend of mine's daughters, and they were in high school. And, I asked them that, and, of course, they say the same thing. Well, we have nothing to hide anyway. So I said, well, give me your phone and let me look through your texts. Well, oh, no, we can't do that. I'm like, well, what's the difference? And then it's like, oh, well, we can't do anything about it anyway. But just real quick, here's a quote from James Comey, the director of the FBI, that's really disturbing. He says, I'm a huge believer in the rule of law, but I also believe that no one in the country is beyond the law. What concerns me about this is companies marketing something expressly to allow people to place themselves beyond the law. Saying that it's just the whole concept is ridiculous. Because you want privacy, you're actually developing something for people to break the law.
Thanks for your call tonight, Dave. I appreciate hearing from you. I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront.
Privacy is the enemy of the state. It's the enemy of the state.
Yeah, they'll do anything to get rid of our privacy.
Well, look at the protests, for instance, in Hong Kong, or the the ones in Egypt in the past. Whatever protests we're talking about, these movements to kind of unseat political people in power. The police really want to know where those protesters are. They really want to know what they're up to. They want to know how they're organizing. They want access to all their private information, and there are different methods of encrypting your texts, for instance.
I'd be interested in finding out how many protests have ever gone on without helicopters flying over them.
Well, I imagine the ones that happened before helicopters existed.
Well, yeah, I mean, other than that, though, but I mean, it's a great way to get an aerial view of where everybody is. I mean, do you
Still,
really
there's
think
limited information that you can gain from a helicopter. If you can have access to all of those protesters' text information, then that
That's
could be a
true.
game changer.
That
right?
would be definitely a game changer.
And we've also seen that the government has moved towards being able to try to shut down cell phone networks to try to prevent people from doing any sort of texting with one another. So they're very interested in getting in the way of these movements that are pushing for change. Whatever their movement is, in Hong Kong, for instance, it's we want democracy, we want this elected person to be gone, etc., things like that. Whether or not we agree with the movement and what they're doing, they should be able to get out there and communicate with one another and not have some government goon squad monitoring their every single word. And that's valuable to have privacy in those circumstances. The government guys have privacy. You better believe they're using military grade encryption when they're talking with one another. How come we shouldn't be able to do the same thing?
Right.
Well, I mean, if you don't have the ability to, like, the government loves to go after protesters. They're going to paint them as terrorists every single time when they get effective. And if you don't have the ability to protest, you don't have the ability to change your government in any way, shape, or form. This country, and many of them, are founded on the idea that there's participatory democracy, or whatever the idea is. Not that I'm for it or anything like that. I'm just saying that it undermines the very foundation of the philosophy of this country.
Yeah, and I mean, our country was founded by what would be perceived as domestic terrorists.
Yep,
I mean, so, get on board with the rest of us, right?
So how do you feel about the idea of having no privacy? Because child molesters, millions of people engage in what's called file sharing. Now, torrenting is generally considered file sharing. It's one of many different types of file sharing. But to be able to privately torrent is a good thing because it essentially obscures your IP address from everybody else that's receiving the torrent, which will hopefully stop you from being targeted by people that want to prevent you from doing torrenting. Now, a lot of people...
Or put you in a cage.
It doesn't happen very often that people go to a cage for torrenting, but there have been some court cases.
There have been instances.
Yep, there have been some court cases where at the very least people have been fined thousands of dollars
Yes.
For torrenting. And in some cases, some people have been fined thousands of dollars who never actually did it. Like, I think there was a case of like a grandmother who was sharing her grandson was sharing some music files through his grandmother's internet connection, and because grandma's name is on the internet connection, she's the one who's legally liable for it. So again, having some privacy protections can stop that sort of thing from happening, but these government guys are demanding to have full access to all of your information. Many people are sharing files on the internet without really even realizing that there is risk involved in that. I mean, it doesn't seem like a big deal to go and download some album from a band or the latest movie or whatever that has come out via the torrents, but that's technically, a copyright violation.
Yeah, I mean, and I will do whatever it takes to try and keep the gangs from showing up at my door,
Share your thoughts with us here, toll free tonight at 855-450-FREE. So my point being that you may not realize that what you're doing is something you could get in trouble for.
It happens.
Yeah,
it really does.
Sharing files is so ubiquitous online that I don't think many people think about it. Yeah, sure, you put in a DVD and you'll get that message. Sometimes you rent a movie and it's like, piracy's illegal, and they're trying to remind you of this, but most people don't really care about that.
No.
Also,
until the courts come in with, an indictment.
We've read a few stories about parents getting in trouble for taking pictures of kids in like the bathtub and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
And this used to happen back when people would bring film to get developed.
Yep, and these developers would snitch on them.
Yeah, and these stories have pretty much gone away with developing film. In the last 5 years or so, this isn't done nearly as often. And now it makes me wonder, what happens to you? And when the government goes, the overzealous government worker decides to go through all your stuff and find some pictures of your kid in the bathtub.
Wait a minute. I didn't know about this. So
Absolutely.
They get parents in trouble for taking pictures of their kids in the bathtub. Oh my God. Do you know how many pictures my parents have of either me in a bathtub or in
the cops may be going after your parents now.
The thing is that every home in America has them.
We're not that tight. But seriously, that's so silly. These are memories that parents are trying to store.
There was another one where they took there were some photographs of a child breastfeeding. And now Facebook is letting that happen.
That's pornography. Actually, did you know
public
Facebook
exposure?
Did you know Facebook just took off its ban on breastfeeding?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, so you can put breastfeeding pictures up.
Well, finally, I bet you can't put a
Christopher Chase
picture.
Rachels is and his wife are big advocates for getting rid of this being seen as pornography.
Well, that's nice to know, but I imagine Facebook will still ban you if you put a picture of just breasts on Facebook.
Well, that would actually just happen.
Because it's your body, but we have to protect it for you.
This guy that runs this natural parenting thing, Justin Everett Stout, we've talked about him on the show before. He got banned for 30 days for his site having something that somebody decided was pornographic on it. This is a site about natural motherhood. So
it is.
Yeah.
Christopher Chase Rachels, who does the Blue Ridge Liberty Project, has been working on this for years, him and his wife. And it's just disturbing how much the government... the fact that they're finding your pictures and, that's creepy in the first place. And then
somebody reports them. It's not... Facebook doesn't go around looking usually for naked pictures or topless pictures, but there's usually some prude who will click the report button.
Yeah,
and
sometimes, but every once in a while. So the point is that this is completely natural. This is, something that's beautiful. Life is beautiful, and this is part of life.
It's a shame that more people don't have your perspective, Lauren, because whether it's breastfeeding or just being topless, there's a huge disconnect between men can be topless, that's not a problem, but women, that's for some reason that's pornographic.
It's so silly.
What's the difference exactly?
Actually, there's a great graphic somewhere online. I should look for it, and you can put it up on the site, that shows the similarities between the male chest and the female chest, and it's there's this little bit of difference, and suddenly it's a huge deal. It's
all societal. That's all it is.
It's very upsetting. I see even my generation headed in a direction where they don't, appreciate the beauty that is life and the body and all of these other things. And
I think so? Even your generation?
Yeah, even my generation. I
would think that younger people would be more open to the idea of topless equality.
They're getting better because a lot of them are my generation seems to be leaning against religion, which is good. But ultimately, yeah, I meet a lot of prudish people in my generation.
Wow, I'm shocked
it's
by that.
very weird.
I have to agree to some extent. There was some outreach that we were doing at the local college during a local campaign here, and James Cleveland, who was doing the campaigning, he was the candidate, was sort of marketing himself as the party candidate, legalize pot, legalize underage, alcohol possession, or lower the drinking age, that kind of thing. And I was actually shocked at how many people were turning up their nose, how many people of your age in their early 20s, late teens were turning up their nose. It wasn't the majority, but it was a fair amount of people who seemed straight edge and kind of stuck up about these sorts of things.
It's funny because I don't think I've ever met anybody that wasn't drinking before they were 21.
Yeah.
And then we turn 21 and then we forget about that feeling that we felt and that logic we came to about I can serve in the military, but I can't have a beer. And we forget
How do you forget about that? I don't understand
because now you can do it. So now it's not a problem. It's like that argument about socialism. First they come for, the homosexuals, then they come for the Jews.
You're right, but some of the responses I got from people when I was talking about, he supports lowering the drinking age, some of the responses were, I'm 21, so I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.